So welcome back, and I think I muted Charity. Hi Charity, how are you?
Hi, thank you.
Hi. Hi Sneha. Sneha, are you there?
Hey, hi, Chetan.
Hi. Hey,
Sorry, I was on mute.
so one thing I wanted to check is, are you okay? Because I didn't see your assignment.
Yeah, I just sent it you. Just send you.
Oh, you sent me? Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry because I was sick from last 2 days. I just finished my work and I just
Okay.
sent it on your mail ID.
Okay. So yeah, I will review it. Maybe by tomorrow morning I'll send you the feedback. Okay.
Okay, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
I'll mute you.
I will I will also send mine after this, Chetan,
Who's that?
because
Suma?
I have my assignment ready. I wrote
Okay.
it as I told you. I don't have internet at home right now.
Okay, sure.
So I just need to type it in and send it across.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Okay, and if you have any like background noise, you can mute yourself. But right now, I've just left you unmute. Okay. But if you think there's some noise going on, just mute yourself so that we don't have any distraction. Okay, thank you. So let's begin with today's session. Today's session is pretty easy. So as I said, what are the four key components of a BA, business analysis? You first do your elicitation, right? Then you do your analysis, documentation, third, and then the last thing you do is validation of the requirements. And these are not done in sequential manner in real life. They will be overlapping, so you will be doing a little bit of requirements elicitation. At the same time, you will be talking to your SMEs, analyzing the requirements, and then document them and validate them with the SMEs, and do the same thing again in multiple iterations. So we will take a look at what are the different elicitation techniques we use in our day-to-day life, and not only from the theory point of view but also from the real BA world aspect. Okay, so how many of you have seen this chart? I'm sure somebody, you know, you might have seen this. Have you seen this before?
Yes, I've
No,
seen
I
this.
haven't.
Mm-hmm. Who has seen it?
No,
No, nobody?
I've seen this in Facebook. That's it.
Oh,
I
on
didn't
a
use it.
Facebook, okay. Yeah, but yeah, this is, I mean, though it's, kind of sort of animated or cartoon, but it is in real life, it's very much how things work if you don't do the right requirements. So what basically it says is, it's a kind of analogy where, we are saying that how the customer needs are transformed and, misinterpreted, misanalyzed, ill-conceived, and at the end of the day, everything is done wrong. And in fact, the customer needs were never understood because nobody asked the right questions. So what it says is, so assuming that's how the customer wanted, explained rather. The customer explained this way, the way the PM, project manager, or the project coordinator, leader, they understood this way. The analyst, you know, again misinterpreted those things, the way they designed it, the way the programmer wrote it. The consultants kind of, explained to people, to the client. There was no documentation. You can see it's like a open ground. That means there was no documentation. The operations team was really bad, in the sense there was no operation support. The customer was built like this, like heavily, huge. There was a huge billing done to the customer despite all these problems. And finally, as I said, there was no support in case of any issues or problems. But the real need of customer was very simple. All customer wanted was this. But because the requirements were not understood, they were not properly elicited, everything went wrong. And that exactly is the role of elicitation, a very key aspect of a BA. If you don't ask the right questions, if you don't do your proper job, basically you will be coming up with the requirements which will never satisfy their need. And that's what I say, even if your system is behaving exactly as per the requirements you gave, still the customer will not be happy because they will still be facing the problems they are. So one example I recollect is in one of the projects we had was, the issue was a customer requested us to come up with a new system. They said, like, we need a new system, a better system for our sales team because they are unable to do their task. So when the team properly sat with the SMEs and started working with them, we found that the issue was not with the system. The issue was with the training they wanted. They were not given enough training to understand how to use the system. So you need to ask right questions, and this is what elicitation is all about. Asking the right questions to understand the need, then what is basically what we call the stated requirements. So let's suppose I'm a BA and I ask my SME, okay, what is your problem? So the first thing they will say is, we need a system to automate things, because they will already jump to a conclusion or a solution that they need a system, and the solution, as part of the solution, a system will be there and it will solve all their problems. But it may not be true. Even after building a system, they might still be facing the problems. So your job is to unearth those requirements using the right elicitation techniques. So here, as I say, requirements elicitation is the activity of drawing out the information from the stakeholders. And I gave you an example that day, the difference between eliciting the requirements and gathering. Who can give me that example? Nobody? Do you recollect an example I gave about the airport example, where we had to?
Oh yes, I remember. The limo and
Yeah.
the bus.
Yes.
Yes.
So that is exactly the difference between the eliciting and gathering. So I think some of you don't recollect, or some of you are new, so I'll again give that example. So this is basically a real example from my own experience. So we were in Kansas City a few years back. We went for a UAT, and me and my co-worker, we were just wrapping up our UAT session, and next day we were supposed to head back to DC. So it was not a very happening big city. It's like we were in the suburb of Kansas City, and we wanted to be on time because our flight was kind of early. 6:30 was the flight time. So my coworker just called and said, we need a limo at 5. around 5 we need to be there. I mean, it has to be there. So make sure that it is there by 4:40. And we call this guy very late in the night. So this guy kind of, after like 1 hour, he calls us and say that, yeah, we were able to get one limo, and this guy will be there by 4:40 in the morning. So next morning we came down at the lobby, and we saw this guy was standing there. We put our luggage in the car, in the limo. And meanwhile, we are seeing that there is a bus standing next to our limo, and people are getting into the bus. So we just inquired, to those fellow passengers who were boarding the bus, that where is this bus going? And they said, to our surprise, that this bus is taking us back to the airport. So now, if you see, our need was not a limo. Our need was just to get to the airport. Because we were so used to, using this word limo, we kind of just used this word. My coworker just told that, we need a limo in the morning. So this guy, took it very seriously and, started looking into that. He got it, but still our need was not exactly a limo. Our need was just to a mode of transportation which can take us from hotel to the airport at 4:45. So even though the guy who was at the desk, he basically gathered the requirements. What we gave, he took it, and he kind of satisfied the requirements we gave him. But still, we were kind of, we would have been much happier if this guy had told us that, we have a bus which takes you exactly where you want to go, and it will take you at the right time. Right? Maybe we would never have ordered that limo. It's not, as I said, it was never about money, but it's much more convenient, if you have some mode of transportation right there at your doorstep. You don't need to worry about, getting all this cars and all that. So the second example would have been eliciting the requirements, asking the right questions. Okay, do you really need a limo, or can I send you another car? Or where do you want to go, by the way? If you don't mind, can I ask you where do you want to go? And in that conversation, he could have found that, we really don't need a car because they already have a bus which will satisfy our need. So that is basically the difference between eliciting the requirements and gathering. Eliciting will always take you to the core of your customer's need. Gathering may or may not. It may take you, or it may take you to a very, in this example, it was never my need to get into the limo, but it was something else. So another example of difference between eliciting and gathering. In one of the projects, our customers told us that, they need a system for one of their workers. Now I support GSA, and as part of GSA, we have a contracting officer community who uses one of the system. So they said that, in one of the, GSA has different regions. So for example, Washington DC is region 11, Kansas City is, I think, region 7, New York is region 2. So in region 2, New York, this office wanted a set of data for doing their job, a set of information which they wanted to use so that they can do their job. So they told us, that we need a system, we need to build a system which will let our COs, the contracting officers, see that data, see that information, and they can create the reports, and based on that they can do their work. And based on that, a new project was initiated, the PM was hired, and we started creating a bunch of documentation, my team. But when we inquired as a BA, when we sat down with the SMEs and inquired, okay, what all information they need, what kind of data do they need, why do they need? So we found that the information they need is nothing new than what we already have. The system already has the information, but just that they are not getting it. We are not sending that information to them. And they were never going to use that data in terms of, they are not going to um, do any, what you call, the like updates or edit to the data. All they need to see is reports. And we already have a system which will do the reports, and all they need is to see the reports every first week of the month. So we never needed a system in this case, because the system which we have is already having the data, all the information is there. All we needed to do is create the reports and send it to the people who need it on the date and time specified by the customer. So if we had not asked the right questions, probably we would have ended up with a system which was never required in first place. And customers like these ideas because you save them a lot of money by not building a system. You don't want to create two systems doing the same thing or storing the same data, right? So that's the way you should deal with or approach when you are doing your elicitation of the requirements. Key concept: the requirements are elicited throughout the project. Majority or bulk of the requirements will be elicited in the first, like in the beginning of the project. But as you start moving in the project, you may have less and less of new requirements coming in. But however, you should make sure that if you have new requirements coming in, you can capture it and put them, in some sort of backlog. That is, you can set them aside, saying that, okay, we won't be implementing these requirements in the current project, in the current solution, because it's too late. But we will do them in the next release. You know the concept of release, right? So I have a new system which will be deployed to production on, let's suppose, September 15th. So that's my release 1. Now, whatever requirements which we were not able to do in the first release can be done in the second release. So after September 15th, the team will again start working on the requirements which were missed, and that will be added in the second release. So these are some of the techniques we use to get the requirements. Now let's take a look at each one of these. So the first one is a brainstorming. Now brainstorming is one of the common techniques we use in the BA, in the very initial phase of the project. So typically this is used when you don't even know what the solution is, or you don't know the requirements in detail. So you sit down with the concerned stakeholders, like how we did the exercise, right? SMEs, customers, or whosoever needs to be included in the meeting will be part of the brainstorming session. Now brainstorming is, the way it works is, the first thing is you really don't have much clue of what needs to be done. So you want to get people and think about it. Think in terms of what can be the possible solution, or what can be the possible ideas. So it's more like more creative, you can say creative method, wherein you don't have any right or wrong answers. You basically bring everybody who is required in order to generate as many ideas you want to. or you can. So here the main thing for us to understand is the BA is here a very important role, because BA can be playing a role of a facilitator. Now, as a facilitator, you really need to make sure that the group you have called as part of the brainstorming session is focused towards creating more ideas, generating more ideas. There are no issues, or the participants are not being critical to other ideas. So sometimes you may have that in real world, that somebody will say some idea, they will say something, but other person will kind of just criticize that in terms of oh, it's a really bad idea, or some sort of negative aspect, which will basically shut the other person down, or it may create into a fight. So in either case, you don't want to do that. So as a BA, you have to make sure, if you are a facilitator or a moderator, you have to make sure that the team, the people who have been who have come for the session, who have been invited for a brainstorming session, are able to put their ideas on the table, more creative, as many options or as many ideas you know they can. And the best part is there is no wrong or right answer or ideas. The more ideas you can come up with, the better it is, because what you will do is, once you have the list of ideas, you will go back to your customers and sit down and pick the best ones, or a combination of best ones. It may not be just one idea, but it can be multiple ideas. And typically the brainstorming session, you can have as many participants you want to, but generally we limit to like 10 to 15, because if you have like 30 people, it's more like chaos and fights in the meeting. You won't be getting really good ideas. So 10 to 15 people you engage, you bring them, and the one thing I forgot to tell you is set the agenda first, right? Set the agenda, send the invites well in advance so that people come prepared, and then bring everybody on the table on the same page and open the meeting. And once you do that, let them come up with ideas. Now in some of the meetings, in some of the sessions, I'm not a facilitator, but I'm a participant, because I want to put my own ideas. So it's not best to be a facilitator as well as a participant. So in that case, somebody else will be facilitating the meeting, the brainstorming session. Has anybody experienced that before, this kind of technique? And this is not only used in IT, it is used in so many different places. The idea is to come up with more creative ideas, and without any critics, without any comments, or those kind of negative aspects.
Yes, in one of my courses in MBA.
I have.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You finish your first, then I'll tell you.
Okay, thank you. One of my innovations class, it was an assignment to our group in my MBA that you just need to put as many ideas as you can, and you can connect the dots later on. But in the brainstorming session, just keep on giving points and give on the ideas, whatever you have. Nothing is wrong. You can just connect the dots later on.
Right.
Yeah, I work here as a voluntarily here in a language school. We do often this brainstorming sessions, to create a new ideas for the school and the curriculum.
Okay.
So once in a month we do that.
Okay, nice.
Oh.
Good, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Poshak as well. So here I'll give an example. Like 2 weeks back, we came to a deadlock where we were unable to move forward with a requirement. Like, to make long story short, we came into a point where the customers didn't know what to do, and even we didn't know how to proceed. So we basically called a meeting where we wanted to just brainstorm different ideas. So we kind of shortlisted a couple of them, but we said, okay, let's get in a room and start this meeting and see how many more options we can come up with. So you won't believe, we had just couple of 3 or 4 options in the beginning, but by the end of the meeting we had like more than 10 options coming from different people, customers, SMEs, internal team, developers, BAs. Everybody is giving their different thoughts, creative ideas, and we were able to use couple of different options and finally solve the issue. So that is the beauty of brainstorming session. You can use my idea or couple of more Poshak's idea and Suma's idea and combine one and come up with a solution altogether. Okay. So the advantages are, as I said, it basically helps people to participate because you, as a facilitator, you need to make sure you need to convey this message upfront that there is no comments or no negative feedback on any ideas. No idea is bad. You can put any idea you want to, and that is basically this will encourage the participation. Right. And again, as I said, people will build on each other's ideas. So I may say something which may not be complete, but based on my thoughts, somebody else may add something to it and it becomes a complete thought. The third, I just said, you get so many different options or ideas within a short span of time that you kind of, you can identify what exactly you need as part of the solution. Very cost effective because you can be done in like 1 hour, and you should not have more than 1 hour of session, because after 1 hour people kind of start losing focus. So it's a very cost effective. People can participate in 1 hour and get you a bunch of ideas you need to. The disadvantage of this is basically I've seen most of my sessions, if somebody kind of starts criticizing, basically those people will start participating. You don't want to look, you feel that my ideas are, people are laughing or they are not liking it, so let me just keep quiet. So you don't want this to happen in your session. So that's the role of a facilitator, who will make sure that the ground rules are laid out and they are enforced properly. That means nobody should be criticizing anyone, nobody should be fighting. You just put your ideas and then later we will see, analyze them. So the BA has to do that. Take all the ideas and synthesize, analyze them once the meeting is over. And another thing I've seen is, if you are sitting with couple of people and there are like boss and subordinate relationship, right, in that. So whatever the boss will say, the subordinate will kindly, he or she will basically follow the boss, because you don't want to, go against your boss. So that's one of the, disadvantage I see most of the time. Focus group is, we don't use that much, but it's good to know focus group. It can be asked in interview. So focus group is similar to the brainstorming session, except that here you are trying to get the perception, belief of the users for any product or services you are trying to build or sell. Apart from that, exactly it's the same thing, the brainstorming session, but here it is more concrete. You already have some product or service in place, and now you're trying to get the perceptions or the how the customers would feel about the product, the opinion of the product for the product or service, right? So in our case, I'll give an example. So we don't build products, right? Mainly it's a services like a system. I mean, system, you can think about a product, but it's not something like a physical tangible product like a phone or a computer. But even in that kind of environment where you are building a system, you can use a focus group in terms of, okay, the system has XYZ features. What do you think about it? Right? Your perception, your opinion, your belief about that system will be captured. So even though that system is not in place, but you, based on some set of requirements, you will basically start the discussion and get those opinions and belief perception from the expected, I mean, from the end users, or it can be some SMEs, whosoever has been appointed to participate in that session. So apart from that, it's kind of.
So is it more of a feedback session?
Feedback would be when you have a system in place and then you are giving it to them, they are using it, and you know, you are getting the feedback. In the feedback, you don't have much chance to improve basically, right? If you have a system in place.
Okay.
So what you're trying to say is there is a system and now you are giving it to the user and they are using it and giving you the feedback, right?
Yeah.
In this case, even much way before you have built the system, you will, you know, engage your SMEs or customers and ask them, okay, if we build or if we give you the system with these features, what is your opinion? Right. Now, in certain cases, if you are building a physical product, you can also come up with a like a prototype. I told you, right, that the prototype is a model. It may not be fully functional model, but it's a blueprint of the real product you will be building. So you may show it to them, and based on that also they can come up with their thoughts or their, you know, opinions or their perception about that product. So that you can, when you build the real product, you will include all those feedback and that product will have all those requirements of your stakeholders. Now here basically this, it works the same way. You have one facilitator who is basically in charge of running the meeting, and then you have the participants. Now group size, you know, we don't use this technique. You know, I've not used it in the past 6-7 years, so it doesn't matter. You know, you have 8 to 12 is in theory they tell you 8 to 12, but in real world it can be less, it can be more. But the key thing is the facilitator will be running the meeting. He or she will be laying the ground rules and making sure people are following those rules. When I say rules, you should not deviate from the agenda, you should not fight, no heated arguments, things like that, right? And as a BA, you may be a facilitator or you may be participant, or you can also be an observer in the sense, you know, you will basically be just observing how people are reacting to the requirements, or they're liking it, or they are, you know, giving some sort of resistance, or they are showing some dislike to it. Okay. So the example I gave you, right, the Kansas City one, there we had a focus group. I'm talking way back in 2009. So in that, basically we wanted to, before we, one part was the UAT for one team, and then the second session was to, come up with some more feedback from the SMEs about the system. So it was more or less like a focus group where we brought them, we showed them the requirements, we showed them some high level, screens, like screen mockups, the prototypes, and based on that they were telling us, how they would want the system to be. So the typical answer, they will say, how about if we have this requirement in here? Can we do this? Can the system also let me do these things? Right? So that's basically your feedback, and that's kind of indirectly they are giving you their own requirements. Any questions on this?
I'm good.
Okay. The advantages of this technique is yeah.
I was wondering if you have had maybe a brainstorming section with the stake with the maybe SMEs, and you've got the initial requirements, and then you went ahead to do a little work and have maybe like screen mockups and prototypes, and then can you come back and do focus group?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, focus group, as the name says, it is very much focused on something you are giving them. It is not something like, you're trying to create some more ideas and thoughts. Yeah, this is more focused. That means you are showing them something, either a prototype or a working prototype, or it's just a set of requirements, but they will be using some basis to give their feedback, their opinion.
Okay, but it cannot be, can it be the initial stage, requirement elicitation? Can it be done as the first stage of?
Yeah, you can do that. That's exactly why you use this.
Oh, okay.
So it's like saying, that I tell you to, just pick or think about, where do you want to go for vacation. So that's basically your brainstorming, right? Maybe you, your husband or your family members will be sitting down and discuss, where exactly they want to go. So that's basically a brainstorming session. So once you select your location, then you will have more, specific requirements. Okay, we will go maybe these 10 places once you pick that spot. So that is basically your focus group. You are now focused on that specific location. You are not concerned about the other options you discussed before in the brainstorming session.
Okay, that means focus group shouldn't be the very first thing to do.
Yeah, if you don't know the solution, then you should basically do the brainstorming.
Okay, because you have to have had an idea from them before you know what you're showing them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you already know that I need to go to, let's suppose, Disney, and I need to take my kids to Disney, then basically you don't really think about those brainstorming sessions. You basically know that, okay, I need to go to Disney. Let's focus on that, and let's see where all we will go, right? So maybe you may go to, out of 5 parks, you may just pick 3, or you may say, okay, I need to go to 4, and then you plan it out and those kind of things. So that is basically similar to what you will do in focus group. You will focus on certain aspect, and you will, based on that, you will take your decisions. Right? Is that clear?
Yes. Thank you.
Sure. So it's, as I said, the advantages are again same. You get huge requirements in a short span of time. As I said, we had like 50 people in that meeting, and they were like, saying, okay, how about we do this? How about if the system can handle this part? All those things we had like more than 200 requirements in like 3 hours. So you can imagine that, in 3 hours we were able to get so many requirements which we would never have received if we had selected any other technique. Now these requirements doesn't mean that you will be doing all 200 of them. You are just getting a dump of all the requirements, and based on that, now the next phase will be your analysis of the requirements. That is what we'll take a look tomorrow, but this is just the getting the requirements from them. The disadvantage again is the same as we saw in the brainstorming. People tend to move in the direction where the majority of people are moving, or somebody who is the real influencer is moving. So in a room, if you have like 300 or let's suppose 40 people or 50 people, and out of that, like one person who is, let's suppose the head of all the 40 people, he or she says something, it's unlikely that the remaining 39 people are going to say something else, right? They are just going to follow the leader, even though that may be right or wrong. Because it's a dynamic session, people are in the room, they are seeing each other, they don't want to look bad, they don't want to offend their boss. So you need to be very careful when you are getting those requirements. You need to make sure that it's not biased and it's not coming from one source. It has to basically represent a general population of your SMEs or customers. Okay. Any questions on the focus group? Now this is the one which we use day in, day out, the requirements workshop. I mean, you won't believe, on an average we use every week this technique. Every week we use, and this is the go-to technique for any BA, the requirements workshop. It's a fancy name of saying that let us engage our stakeholders and get the requirements from them. So in the brainstorming, the idea was to, basically come up with the new ideas, more creative ideas, and as many as you want to. The focus group was basically you have something in place, either a product, service, right? And you basically focus on that aspect, get the opinions, perceptions, belief about that product or service from your SMEs. And the requirements workshop is your main technique where you are doing the real Q&A and getting the requirements. As I say, it refers to the set of structured meetings used to elicit the requirements from your stakeholders. So if in a project you have been assigned as a BA and there are like 10 SMEs on the project, you will be engaging all 10 SMEs in these meetings and ask them the right set of questions and document their response. Now here, again, there will be a person who will be facilitating the meeting, and generally what we do is we let the PM or a BA, a co-worker will be doing it. So if I am doing the requirements, I should not be doing or playing the role of a facilitator. Somebody else will be, because my job is to ask them the right questions. I can focus on that, asking the right questions, understanding what they are saying, and based on that, I can ask follow-up questions. So I should not be a facilitator. At the same time, I should not be a scribe. The role of a scribe is basically to document the meeting or take the notes. Right? So you have three different roles here. One is a facilitator, Second one is the BA who is actually doing the requirement session, asking the right questions. And then the scribe or the recorder who is taking down the notes, the response of your SME. Now you can use different techniques in the sense you can have a, sometimes we also record the meetings. So like right now I'm recording the meeting with you guys because I'm speaking. So my focus is right now on giving you, the right information, right? I cannot be capturing the notes, or similarly with you also, right? You may not be finding difficult to listen as well as to capture the notes and ask the questions. So that's why we have this recorded session, so you can go back and refer to it if you have any doubts. So in the interview, people will ask you, okay, what kind of elicitation techniques or requirements gathering techniques you have used in the past. So your answer should be exactly that you have used different techniques depending on different situation. And most of the time we use requirements workshop to elicit the requirements from the stakeholders, as well as I've used brainstorming sessions as well, just to give an example. Any questions on this? And one key thing here is, which basically you should know, is in the requirements workshop, you have a generally, a huge audience. It's not like one or two people in the requirements workshop. You will have at least like 5-6 people who are participating in the workshop from the customer side. So you can have like, 5 to 6 SMEs in one session. You will be the BA asking the questions to your SMEs. There will be a person who will be facilitating the meeting and somebody who is taking the notes. If you don't have that person who is taking the notes, the scribe, you can basically record the meeting. These days, all these tools will have an option to record the meeting. So you can basically go back and listen to it and, do your analysis based on that. Are we good? Okay, so as you can see, advantages are you get huge set of requirements in a very short span of time. And this is a very, free form discussion. So it's not it's not basically very structured. You ask the questions, you get the response. Based on the first response, somebody else can again ask some questions. So it will be more of a Q&A session between you and the SMEs. And that's why, you get a good set of requirements in a short span of time. But the idea is to stick to the agenda. You should not deviate from this agenda. So for example, if I'm doing a requirements for a banking system, and within the banking system I'm doing the requirements for, let's suppose, online, what do you call, a login feature. So let's suppose I'm just doing a requirements for a login feature. If I have set the agenda as that, basically my focus should be to nail down all the requirements which are related to the login feature. I should not be jumping here and there, which is very critical because many people have seen they have a tendency of moving away from the agenda. And these are some of the disadvantages you can think of. The same as what we saw before. sometimes people may participate, they may not. If out of 6 SMEs, maybe 2 are really participating, 4 are not. So you need to engage them. That means you need to bring them, ask them the right questions, and understand why they are not participating. Maybe they don't have enough knowledge, or is it something else? Can also be sometimes interpersonal issues, or conflict between different departments, and I see this very commonly. I see this. So if I have SMEs coming from different units, so they may kind of not they may not be seeing eye to eye. They may have some own issues which will again impact our requirements process. So I have one SME who is coming from one unit and another SME who is coming from different unit, but they don't like each other in terms of, professionally I'm saying. For some reason, they don't get along. So they may basically be giving their own requirements and they want the system to support their own requirements. And that is, again, you have to solve that. Interview, as you know that, it's, as the name suggests, interview is something which you will be doing on a one-to-one basis. So you don't have a large audience. Maybe you just have one SME. So in that case, you can just sit down with that SME and ask them the questions and write the answers. It's a pretty simple technique, and it can be structured. That means you will go prepared with a set of questions. It's always good to go prepared with certain questions, and then you can come up with your own questions, like impromptu questions, when you are done with your set of questions. So it can be formal or structured, or it can be informal or unstructured. You just maybe bump into that SME and start talking to him or her. It's synchronous or asynchronous. So synchronous is basically when you do it in real time. You ask the question, you get the response. Right? Like how we are doing right now. It's a synchronous session. I'm giving you some feedback, or I'm telling you, I'm asking you, and somebody is responding back to me. That's synchronous. Asynchronous is where I'm just giving you my question and I have to wait to get the response. Maybe I'm sending by mail or by email or by I'm leaving a voicemail. Whatever it is, I'm not getting my response immediately. I'm waiting for it. That's what the asynchronous interviews are. So the interviews can also be open-ended or close-ended. Now, open-ended is basically if you say, okay, give some description of your, product, or tell me about yourself, or tell me your requirements. That's an open-ended. I can write my thoughts, my notes, my comments in it. Right? You can design the interview based on that, or you can have a close-ended interviews. You can give them option. Okay, if I build this product, what will be your opinion? Or I give you some multiple options and you need to pick from there. That's basically close-ended. You don't have option to put your own thoughts or your own opinions, but you are forced to pick from what I give you. And the way you can do your interviews is you can have face-to-face. That means you go in person, or you can have like teleconferences. Like right now we are sort of interview, right? I mean, just assume that, if I'm taking your interview using this tool, the GoToMeeting or webinar, right? I'm doing a teleconference. I can also see you if I want to. We can switch on our webcams and we can see each other, we can discuss, we can talk. So that's basically how you can do it. Any questions? Hello?
I'm good.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'll go.
Yeah, I'm good, Chetan.
Okay, thank you. And the last one is the questionnaire and surveys. So in the questionnaire and survey is basically when you have your SMEs spread across, a wide location or a geographic location where you cannot reach out to them one by one, or you cannot bring them together in one room, then you can use this technique. So you can prepare a questionnaire with right set of questions and send it to them. You can mail them, you can email them, or you can also, sometimes you can also build a system wherein you can send the questionnaire to maybe 1,000 people or 1,000 participants and get the response back from them. Now, same thing, you can have open-ended, close-ended questionnaires. So you might have observed that, if you have used some product, at the end of it, they will ask you to give their opinion. Your opinion about how the product was. So that's a questionnaire, that's a survey they are doing. And so in some cases, some questions will be open-ended. That means you can put your own text, you can put your own description. In certain cases, you won't be given an option. You just have to pick from the different options. So you can also get your requirements using this technique. You can come up with your list of questions and then let the SMEs respond to the questionnaire and get your requirements. This technique we use once we roll out the system, because once you roll out the system, it has been used by the SMEs or end users, and they will tell you exactly how they feel. And always the close-ended questionnaires are good because it's easy for people to fill than the open-ended. And in the close-ended, you can also do some quantitative analysis. So let's suppose I have I've sent the resume, not resume, I've sent the surveys to 1,000 people, 1,000 users, and now they have responded back. So I can quantify how many are satisfied, how many are not, right? If it's a close-ended, because I know that out of 1,000, 80%, 800 of them gave me 9 rating. Maybe 20 people gave me, or 20% of that gave me not that good, maybe 6, 7, or whatever that number is. So I can quantify and come up with a real hard data than just saying, people liked it or they did not like it, things like that. Right, so you can also use questionnaire surveys to get your requirements. The only drawback of this is people may not respond to it. So if you send it to 1,000 participants, you may get response only from 200 of them, because most of us, you don't like to fill in pages and respond to the questionnaires. Okay, so these are basically different techniques you can use to get your requirements, to elicit the requirements. Your brainstorming sessions, focus groups, requirements workshop, interview, questionnaires, and surveys. Okay, this was an easy topic, so we will move to the next one, which is the BPM. This is what the hands-on exercise will do. Any questions?
Chetan, you had asked earlier about any brainstorming sessions we had attended.
Mm-hmm.
So I had attended one during my post-graduation, and in those they asked us to write our ideas on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. Is it always like that, or do they talk it out?
No, it's always like that. I mean, you basically you don't want your ideas. Sometimes you want to keep it anonymous, right? You are saying
Yeah,
that,
yeah. It was what we were asked to write our class roll number and our ideas. That's it.
right?
So,
So yeah, so people don't you see. If I give you an idea, if I put my name, I may be I may feel that what if my idea is not good, or what if my
mhm.
idea is so stupid, people will start laughing at me. In fact, that may be the best idea, but we generally think that when you are doing a brainstorming, people
Uh-huh.
think, okay, what about if my idea is not good, or people start laughing or start making you know fun at me. So
Yeah.
that's why you keep it anonymous, so you don't know who has given it, and that means nobody can pinpoint anyone.
Okay.
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 Okay, so let's move to the next topic, which is the most important topic. Now we have covered the elicitation process, right? You're using different techniques to elicit the requirements. Now you will be using different techniques to analyze the requirements. And one of the most basic technique you use is using the BPM, business process modeling. So how many of you can tell me what is a business process? What do you mean by process?
A sequential activity
Hmm. Yeah, don't be
that creates a
yeah,
solution.
don't be scared. Anyone, like, just feel free to give me your own answer. There's no wrong answer. So whatever you think, there has to be some thought when I say process. What is process? So Suma, you said something, right? That's a set of
Yeah,
activities.
a sequential activity that creates a product or a service at the end.
Very good. So we do this in our day-to-day world without knowing this process. We do everything we do is part of the process, right? Now, anything like, for example, making a coffee, it includes a set of process. It has set of activities rather. It's a process. You just don't create it, you know, just by moving a hand, right? It has a set of steps, and at the end of that, you create a or you make a coffee. So that is basically a set of activities which are done in a sequential manner in order to create some value. That is, you are trying to create a product or a service out of it by completing those set of activities. That is exactly what a business process is all about. So taking the same concept in our business domain, we all departments, if you recollect my demo, I said all the departments have a set of processes which are being done in those departments, right? So for example, finance, they are doing their reconciliation process, their accounts receivable process, payables process, right? Invoicing. Similarly, in the um, marketing department, you will have a set of processes. HR, you will have different set of processes. So each one of these different departments have their own processes. That means they have a set of activities which needs to be done in order to create some valuable output at the end of the process. So the reason why we will use this technique is to draw the as is and to be state of your client's process. So in order to give them a solution that what needs to be done, you first need to understand how they are doing it in the as is state, what we call, or the current state. So how are things being done right now? Let us capture that. You will use the same technique, the business process model, but first you will capture the current state or the as is state. You draw that using these set of notations you are seeing here. Then you identify what are the issues in the process, what are the pain points, what are the bottlenecks, which steps can be automated, which steps can be done using a system, or which steps can be done only pure manually. That's your future state or to be state. Then you come up with the future state or to be state, and now you can identify your requirements from the future state.
So is it just like a flowchart?
Yeah, it's a flowchart, exactly. It's a flowchart. But it has some more notations. When I say notations, these are called notations. Now make sure in the interview use these words.
Yeah.
Instead of saying symbols or images, use notations. Because as a pro, you don't use incorrect words.
Okay.
Okay. So these are all different notations we will typically use to draw your process flow. So again, as I said, process flow is nothing but a series of activities conducted in our business domain in order to produce some output, a valuable output. It can be a physical product, it can be a service. That means it can be physical, it can tangible, it can be intangible. The steps are you first understand your customers or clients' current process, how things are being done. You ask them the right questions. Okay, what do you do? Right? What are the different set of activities which you do? What happens after you do this? What happens after once you complete this? Those kind of questions. Then, of course, your customer knows better than you what their pain points are. So they will tell you, okay, these are the pain points in the process. So based on the feedback you get, as a BA, you will come up with a future state, the improved process. Right? That is the goal of this exercise. So let's go one by one these notations, and then we will stop here today. So the first thing is you can see this thing here, right? This is called a pool. Let me open side by side. Now here there are two things. One is, if you observed, I used a BPMN template. Okay, let me back up a bit. So these are the different templates you will see when you download the Visio tool from Microsoft. These are the different templates you will have, right? So if I'm creating something like a floor plan, like I'm an architect and I want to create how the house will look like and design all that. So I may use a different template. If I'm a technical architect, a solution architect, I want to create an enterprise architecture of the system, then I will pick a different template here. Where is that? Yeah, this one. Right, so depending on my role and my need, I will pick the right template. But for most of our time, we will need only two templates. One is the cross-functional flowchart, and the second one is the BPMN flow template, the BPMN diagram. This is very simple. The basic flowchart, we don't want to use it because it is too simple. We don't want to. It won't give you much options to model your process, to draw your process. That's why we stick to cross-functional and the BPMN. Now the BPMN is an advanced version of doing the modeling. So BPMN is what we call the business process model and notation, which is a language used by the professionals to draw the process flows. And it is a language in itself. That means when I'm using this BPMN template, it is creating this tool is creating a code which will be used by the developers. But whereas I'm just creating a simple cross-functional flowchart, it is just giving me an image. And I'll talk more on BPMN, but the concept is same. It doesn't matter whether it's a cross-functional flowchart or it's a BPMN. The basic concept or philosophy is same to help you model your process. So I'll take with the cross-functional flowchart, and then we'll go to the advanced one. So this is my pool. Okay, this whole thing is my pool, and this is basically the container of my process. Right? That's my pool, and that is holding my process. So let's suppose I'm saying process order. That's the name of my process. Now these are the lanes within the process, and the lanes will be basically, you will assign the lanes to each one participant of the process. So let's suppose I'm having the customer and the order specialist who is helping me process the order. So each one is a participant of my process, both of these, and I will assign a lane to each one of these. So the concept is same. When you go to a swimming pool, you see a pool, right? Huge pool. And within the pool, you have different lanes. The same concept, you have this big pool and you have different lanes assigned to each one participant of the process. And I can also add some more lanes if I want. Okay. Now, the first thing when you do is when you want to start a process, use this notation of start. Now, because I'm using the basic flowchart, the basic template, it's a common for start and end. That means I'm saying my process starts only when you have this notation, and you can make it. You can enter your label here, start. Okay. Are you guys following me?
Yes.
Yes.
Now I'm saying that, okay, I'm started my process. The name of the process is, the scenario is, the customer is creating an order and submitting it, and that has to be completed. So we started the process here. The customer will enter order. I'm just giving a very high level example. Tomorrow we'll do some exercise, some real good examples. But I just want to tell you the notations, understand the notations here. So these are the activities which will be done by this guy, and in sequential order. So the way it works is, I will pick my connector. So if you go to insert, you will have a connector here. Select that and just drag it. So now you can see the sequence flow goes from left to right. I cannot have this way basically. I cannot say that this is incorrect, because now on one hand you are saying the sequence flow is going from left to right, and then you are showing the arrow again from right to left. That's incorrect. Okay, so I'm saying only after the enter order is completed, this is a task or an activity which is being done by the customer. Only after this is done, maybe I'm just giving an example that review order or payment can be done. You cannot have submit payment before you enter the order. This must be completed before you go to the next step. So each one of these are basically an activity which is done by that particular participant of the lane, and they have to be in the right lane. You cannot have customers activity in this lane, right? Because then you are saying that the order specialist is doing it if it's in this lane. So you need to have it in the right lane. So I'll do the same thing again here. I'll connect this. Oops. Let me delete this. That's why I like to use a BPMN template, because it's a little bit different than this one. Here you have to basically do some multiple actions. Sometimes the arrow doesn't match. Okay, so this is an activity, it's basically shown as a rounded rectangle, or in some cases it can be sharp rectangles. Doesn't matter, it's the same meaning. Okay, then you have what we call the gateways or the decision points. So I'm saying that this is like a gateway. That means here, whenever you have a diamond, it means there is some sort of checkpoints, or you are deciding something, or it's validating something. So this is basically your gateway or decision points, a diamond. So I'm saying that let me check if the payment has been done. If yes, you do the next step, that is ship item. Okay, And if the payment is not processed, that means you don't want to ship it, right? Will you ship it if you don't get the payment?
No.
No. Okay. So this is, this is a very I wanted to show you the notations, but we will really do a lot of exercise on that. So this is my start event, what we call. That means you are starting a process using this notation. Then you start, once you start the process, you will have the activities. So in this case, we have like simple, it's a very simple process. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 activities. Okay, that means the customer is doing two things. He or she is entering the order. Once it's completed, he or she is submitting the payment, right? The moment you submit the payment, the order comes here to the order specialist. This guy will review the order. That's again an activity for this guy. And then there has to be a checkpoint. Okay, did I receive the payment? Yes, I did receive it. Then ship the item. If no, you don't ship the item and you cancel the order. Right? So here the important point is you can have only one outgoing sequence flow. You cannot have multiple outgoing sequence flow. Either it can be yes or it can be no. You cannot say both will be accepted. And one important thing is every process must have a start and it must have an end. That is when you can say the process started, it did certain activities, and then it ended. You cannot have a process which doesn't have any end. Now here, just based on the statement I told you, what is the issue in this flow, in the process flow? Can you tell me?
Chetan, can you repeat the question, please?
I'm saying that this process flow is incomplete. I told you, right? Every process flow
They're not
must.
checking whether the customer received.
Sorry?
No,
They are not. Yeah.
you carry on what you were saying.
No, I was saying that they are not checking whether the customer received the shipment.
Mm-hmm.
After the enter order, they usually review the order first, then submit payment.
That is not.
Okay. Actually, yeah.
I think
See, I told you, right? The logic is don't focus on the logic. The notation somewhere is missing. I'm giving you a hint. I'm missing a notation here.
Is it the end?
the start button for other specialists.
No, the process is already started. See, the process won't start again for this guy. We have already started the process here. I think Poshak, you said something, right? What is that?
I said there should be an end, right?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
is it order cancelled? Order cancelled is not an end.
No, that is an end. That is an end. This has to be ended here. So the key thing here is a process can have one, it must have one start event, but it can end in multiple end. So I'm saying that my payment process, I'm checking whether the payment was processed or not. If no, that I'm canceling I'm basically aborting the process. I'm stopping the process here. right? But if the payment is processed, then I ship the item and I still need to end the process. I cannot leave it open. Okay, that's my end. So I have two ends here. One is the happy path, what we call, because it's ending in my shipment, right? The goal of the process is to process an order, and if everything went well, that this guy entered the order, submitted the payment, this guy reviewed the order, and the payment was processed, the item was shipped, and the order got processed. That is my happy path. Okay, that means everything was done as per the expectation, and I'm ending my process in a happy path. But in this case, the process payment failed, the payment was failed, and I'm ending my process in an exception path, what we call. So I still need to end my process. The notations are same, but one is happy path and one is exception path. So you have the start, you have the end. Now in some cases, in some tools, you have the end notation shown differently, and I'll show you tomorrow in using the BPMN template. The sequence flow is the control, where the control is going, you need to put in that direction, right? Typically we draw the models from left to right in a landscape. You can also have in what you call the portrait. That means they go from top to bottom. But I prefer this, and most of the times you will see this style of using the landscape and from left to right. Okay, any questions?
Nope, I'm good.
So what I want you to do is tomorrow, before we start the session tomorrow, download this tool from MS Microsoft Office. You will get 90 days to play with this tool, and we will focus the next couple of days just doing this. So even if I have to take one more extra week to complete this course session, I will do it, because you have to have a really good hands-on practice on this tool. I want you to know this concept, not the tool as such, but the technique, the concept and drawing the process model. You should be very comfortable with that, because I'll tell you, in the previous session, one of the candidate was, the first day she was told to draw a process flow, the first day itself. And luckily we did a lot of exercise on that, so she was confident of doing that.
So is everything the process flow done through this tool only, or do we use some other kind of tools, or is it just Microsoft Visio?
No, there are so many tools, but if you know this tool, the chances are you will be able to use any other tool. Now the notations are same. It doesn't matter whether I'm using Appian or Savian or MS Visio or any other tool, Signavio, right? TIPCO. There are so many different tools which are used for doing the BPM, business process model. But the idea is to know, okay, how to create a model, how to create a flow, process flow. Now, even if I'm using some different tool, this notation won't be different. It will be the same notation. See, this is not going to change whether I'm using Visio or I'm using TIPCO or I'm using Savion, Appian, any other tool. This is going to be the same. That's what they want to standardize how you do the flowchart. And it's impossible to know, on which project you will get a job and which tool they will be using. That's kind of impossible to know. But if you have used MS Visio, which is one of the most commonly used tool, you will have fairly good chance of, using any other tool. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So tomorrow we'll do more hands-on exercise on this, but I want you to do is go to Microsoft Visio Professional. Download this one, okay? Don't download the other version. Download the professional version. So you'll have to create an account there and download it. Okay, so create your account on Microsoft. Use your account, download that tool, and you will get 90 days to play with it. Oh, sorry, 60 days, I think. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So, any questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. So, we'll see you back tomorrow 9 p.m. Okay. With a lot of other, hands-on exercise starting tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right.
Okay. Good night.
Good
All
night.
right. Good night. Thank you.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
Good night, Chetan.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.